Hello everyone, very good afternoon to all, and this is Sonia Singh in front of you. Very warm welcome everyone in our channel IAS Exam for English Medium. Mr. Devina Thakkar, it's a humble submission, Devina Thakkar. If you are completely hearing my voice, you are completely this is not the way to demoralize any of the teacher. हालांकि आपके इस तरीके के वर्स्ट कमेंट से हमारे टीचिंग स्टाइल पर या हमारे काम पे खास फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, right? And if you are try to be demoralize us, I think everything is liable to be maintained for the improvement, right? If you feel the content is not up to the mark, kindly you have to be very much ensure that you have to be talk to us, you have to be try to be tell us what is the problem behind it. Devina Thakkar, I hope your concepts are totally not up to the mark, right? And if you have any problem, kindly consult us. Rather, you have to be mentioning these type of the worst comments in the comment box, and you are not completely demoralized or completely not, you are not liable to mentioning all these stupid comments in the comment box, right, Davina? Yes, Vivek sir is definitely hearing you, Davina, and definitely he will take a very positive action on your comments. And it's my last warning, Davina, you are completely not liable to mentioning all these comments, and rest of the time and further in the future, if you'll try to be mentioning all these comments, this is completely not up to the mark, right? ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि आपको समझ भी नहीं ना आ रहा हो, ठीक है? पहले आप अपने कॉन्सेप्ट्स को चेक कीजिए, उसके बाद हमसे बात कीजिएगा. And you are the only person, Devina Thakkar, is you have a problem with the content and you have the problem with the teaching style. Rest of the students are every day is just adding with us, and they don't have any problem with us. Okay, everyone. Yesterday's session, I think I was just continue with social religious reformation in yesterday's session, and this session is completely up to the mark, everyone. I think numbers of the doubts and numbers of the question yesterday I already taken from your people. I feel these concepts that I already done more of the sessions. I think 2 or 3 sessions on the world history, 2 or 3 sessions on the Indian history, medieval and ancient as well. And I'm just choosing the session basically which is completely up to the mark as per the need. And numbers of the question they are asking in the previous year paper sessions, everyone, right? Okay, I think the day before yesterday's session, I already mentioning, I already done with lots of the sessions, everyone. I think I already done the Industrial Revolution. I already done about the session on Jainism and Buddhism as well. So I think you people don't have any problem in the respective sessions. Rest of the things, if you really have any comments, any doubt in the session, kindly ask in the comment box, everyone. We are completely liable to mentioning your comments. Try to be answer your all the comments and try to be take your doubts, every doubts, right? So let me explain, everyone. In everyday sessions, I try to be mentioning you what is the importance of the answer writing and how you people completely enhance and increase your answer writing as per joining us on the daily basis, right? So it is a humble submission, everyone, that you people completely connect with us. Okay, so I already done I think moreover 2 or 3 sessions on the answer writings, and yesterday we already done moreover 5 hour session where I already done the important prominent topics, basically ask in the mains perspective. The answer writings is basically directly come on the Buddhism, the philosophy of Jainism. So everyone, you can see the next question on the screen. The question is completely based on the social religious reformations, right? So it is a very important to understand what is the meaning of the social religious reformation in 19th and 20th century. And numbers of the time I told you, it is a very important to understand the nature of the question, right? And what do you understand by the nature of the question, everyone? Nature of the question is basically mean when you start to understand what the question is want to say exactly, right? 2 or 3 important things which is very important to understand while doing the answer writing, everyone. First of all, it is very important to understand the approach, we can say, right? What is the exact approach? Right, it means that what you understand by the question. Number 2, it is a very important to understanding that how much you develop your understanding with the question, right? Understanding. Number 3, it is very important to choose the mid body very carefully, right? Mid body is basically we can say the elaboration and the explanation, right? The elaboration and the explanation of the same question. Number 4, definitely I can say the approach, the understanding, and whenever you discuss about the conclusion, right? Conclusion, definitely it is a very important to sum up the whole question, that whatever we understand with the whole question. And in the whole 3 or 4 points which I already mentioned on the board, everyone, it is a very important to understand the keywords. It is very important to choose the keywords very carefully. For example, you can see the question on the screen, everyone. The question is completely asked about the social religious reformation, right? Basically you completely understand what the question is asked to you, first of all. So what is the question is completely asking about social religious reformations, right? So it is very important to understand, and it is very important to explain what is the meaning of social and the religious reformation. Fine. And number 2, it is very important to understand or explain that what is the main existence and what is the evils basically existing in the social religious in the 19th and 20th century, and prominently what were the evils are exactly existing in social religious reform, social religious framework, right? Number 3, it is very important to target the aim, right? And what about the aim? When you start to understand what is the meaning of the modernization and what is the meaning of the westernization, and what the question is basically asked about the discussion, right? That you have to be discuss about the social religious reformation in India in the context of 19th and 20th century, and the context is asking about the aim in the modernization and the westernization, right? So in this question you directly implement in this question you can directly mentioning about the implications of the 19th 20th century basically dependent on the social religious movements, right? So this question is very important, everyone. In this session we are just trying to cover numbers of the points we can see. So let's move ahead. Approach, let me discuss the approach, right? Approach is basically in the introduction briefly explain about the social religious reformation, right? What is the need of the reformation actually of the 20th century, and it is very important to understand about the modernization and the westernization, right? And why we are mentioning about the differentiation between modernization and the westernization, because it is very important to understand the impact, or we can say the changes of the 19th 20th century basically on the social religious movement, how it is completely impacted, right? and how the changes occurred actually. Is the changes completely occurred due to the modernization, or is the changes completely occurred due to the westernization, right? So it is a very important to understand the meaning of a westernization and modernization. It is a very important to understand about the differentiation, that exactly what you understand by the meaning of the modernization and what is the meaning of the westernization, and how modernization and westernization completely helpful in the 19th and 20th century to uplifted or help to change the society in the 19th century, or the religious reformation in 20th century. Fine. Number 3, it is very important to understand, to develop the approach regarding how much social religious reformation aimed at modernization rather than the westernization. Again, I am saying that it is very important to understand that how the changes exactly were occurred due to the westernization or due to the modernization. So it is very important to again understand that how can we differentiate both the terminologies between the westernization or as well as in the modernization, and conclude how we can conclude positive impacts of the reformation on the Indian society, right? So what we understand in the impact, basically where we are going to discuss about the impact on the women reform. Just a minute. It is a very important to understand about the impact, the positive impact, right? So who were impacted completely 19th and 20th century? The women, basically, and the completely the reformation related with the women. Sometimes we can say definitely the dowry system, we can say the child marriages, we can say the widow remarriages, about the polygamy. We have a numbers of the reformation in the 19th and 20th century, and the impact is completely matter of discussion and the matter of we can say the debate as well. And we cannot forget the contribution of the numbers of the personality in the history, that we cannot forget about Raja Ram Mohan Roy, we cannot forget about Jyotiba Phule, we cannot forget about Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and we cannot forget about Vivekananda and Dayanand Saraswati. We have a very we have numerous of the personality in the history where we are completely appreciating their contribution in the 19th and 20th century, specifically for social and religious reformation in 19th and 20th century, right everyone? So it is very important to understand, right? Let me explain you that what we are going to discuss in the session. We are discussing about the social and religious reformations, right? So in the social and the religious movement in the 19th and the 20th century, we have a very important two prominent keywords we are going to choose. The first, definitely we can say the Reformation, and the second we can say the revivalism. Right? So it is a very important to understand the differentiation between Reformation and the revivalism. I would like to mention two more examples specifically related with the Reformation. Definitely I would like to add Raja Ram Mohan Roy, right? And the revivalism, definitely I would like to mention the name specifically for the Dayanand Saraswati. Right. So how can we differentiate both the terminology, the Reformation and the revivalism, right? What is the meaning of the Reformation? Basically, when we have a completely existing formation and we just want to improve it, right? That, for example, we have a problem like sati system in Reformation. So we really want to improve the sati system to completely we can say destroying the system of a sati. Definitely we are introducing numbers of the acts and law. So we have a very good example of William Bentinck. We have a very good example Raja Ram Mohan Roy in somewhere 1829, where they are completely making the act on the Sati Act, or we can say the Sati Reformation, right? And the revivalism, we have a very good example of Dayanand Saraswati, who is completely indulging or informing the whole public regarding back to the Vedas, where we are completely liable to study the Vedas and we have to be learned from our Vedas. Fine. You can see the numbers of the personalities on the screen, everyone, regarding social reformation of the India. So the condition of the Indian society in the 19th and the 20th century, basically it is a very important to understand the evils in the Indian society in 19th and the 20th century and the existing problems in the Indian society. Right, so in this session definitely we are mentioning about the condition of the Indian society in 19th and 20th century, and definitely we are just going to discuss the contribution of the people who are completely just want to improve the Indian society with the existing evils, right? Surely we can say the Indian society in the 18th and the 19th century was completely plagued by superstition and social inequalities. Social inequalities is basically completely correlating the social existence, we can say, right? Social inequality is basically dependent on what? When we are looking for the social equality, and when we completely need to improvement in the social status of the people. Fine. Priests use the monopoly of the scriptures, knowledge of the deceive the masses and the create oppressive social conditions. Monopoly, when we are basically discuss about the domination, right? Domination of a scripture's knowledge, when the hierarchy in the society, basically in 19th and the 20th century social strata, we can say they are completely divided in the four varna system. The Brahmans, we can say the Vaishyas, the Shudras, and we have a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. But definitely the only and one class, the Brahman class, and the somehow the higher class which is completely existing in the hierarchy, they are completely bound the other people to they are completely bound to the other people to get the knowledge of the other Vedas, right? Specifically for the religious text, and deceive the masses and the create oppressive social conditions that without the information they cannot exist in they cannot enter in the temples. They are completely not liable to study all these Vedas as well. Practice of female infanticide and problems completely related with the women. We have a numbers of the examples we can count down right now, that we have a child marriages, we have a polygamy, we have a widow remarriages problems, we have a numbers of the domestic violence we have already. So we have a numbers of the problems specifically. So these type of the problems are completely existing in the framework of the 19th and the 20th century, right? And in Bengal, we can see the old men look very young girls and the wives, which is known as the Kulinism. Right, this is one of the main prominent evils in the 19th and the 20th century. These old men died soon. Later on, what about spend the rest of their lives as the widows, restricted to wearing the white and not allowed to remarry, and they are not completely liable to contribute themselves in any of the social rituals and any of the social traditions. They are completely boycotted from the society as well. Fine. In some other parts, sati pratha was a prevalent. When husband died, wives completely burnt alive on his funeral, and whenever the tradition is completely happened in numerous of the geographical extent in India, they are completely not liable to showing their own desire that they are liable to be participate or they are not, right? And originally sati was supposed to be volunteer practices where wives jumped into the funeral pyre out of a grief and loyal commitment. But in the 18th century or in the 19th century, some section of the society forced women to commit the sati, right? Whenever we're discussing about the sati tradition in India, from the beginning of the era, whenever we discuss about the sati system, from the beginning of the era, sati system is completely just using as per the tradition. It means it is completely dependent on the women that she is completely desirable to burnt alive with his husband or not, right? But ultimately on the time of the 18th or the 19th century, it is completely become compulsory for the girls, or completely compulsory for the women. They are completely liable to accept the orders of the hierarchy class and to be burnt alive with his own husbands, right? Casteism, we can say one of the prominent we can say caste system, we can say the most of the prominent evil in the 19th or the 20th century. And not only the 19th and the 20th century, we can say definitely caste system is not only the prominent part of particularly 19th and the 20th century. Caste system is already prevalent from the past and past years ago in Indian history, but specifically in the 19th and the 20th century, in the modern era, in specifically for the Indian history, it has become a very, we can say the a very crucial, very matter of concern, and caste system is somehow become the hierarchical caste system in the ritual status, right? When we are not going to provide the equal status in the society, when we are completely not giving the equal opportunity to the person to participating in it, right? And system of segregation, we have again a very prominent problem, untouchability of the lower caste, and this system divided people into many groups, prevented the development of a feeling of unity where common nationality among the people. What is the common nationality of the people? When we are developing of the feelings that when we are discussing about the unity, when we are discussing about the concern of the humanity, when we are completely concerned about the changes in the social and the religious perspectives and the existing evils in the society. And caste system is not only prevalent in the particular caste. Whenever discussing about the Hinduism, so definitely we can say we have a numbers of the hierarchy, we have a Brahmans, we have a Kshatriyas, Vaishya and Shudras, but definitely it is not happening exactly 19th and 20th century. 19th and 20th century, when we are discussing about the we can say the Muslim class and the Sikhism, they both of the categories are completely suffering with again the equal contribution in the society, everyone, the equal contribution in the society, and with the equal contribution they are completely suffering with the equal status, right, in the society. Fine. So the winds of the change, now it is the time to change the it is a time to discuss about the social religious reformation. 19th and 20th century was the time we are completely discussing about whom, when we're discussing about the change, when we want to change something in the society, and why we are looking for the change, when we are completely not agreed with the existing evils, or when we are completely not satisfied with the existing society, when we are completely not satisfied with the social and the religious problems in the society. So what about the change? Whenever we're discussing about the change is somehow just discussing about the reformation. Reformation. Let me bifurcate the word, the reformation. Where you are completely discussing about the going to do something again, and formation, it means the formation we are not completely satisfying with the formation, the existing formation, when we are completely, and why we are looking for the need change, when we are completely not satisfied with the existing formation in the society. And what is the existing formation in the society in the 19th and 20th century? We have a completely rigid, we have a orthodox, we have a very heterodox, we can say, we have a numbers of the evils, when the women and the specifically people are belonging from different caste, when they are not completely getting the equal status in the society. So we have a numerous of the problems in the 19th and the 20th century. Fine. And what about Renaissance? Whenever you're discussing about the Renaissance is basically the term when we are specifically we are using for the rebirth, we can say. Renaissance is the term when we are using sometimes the rebirth, right? This term is also considered as the Enlightenment, when we start to awareing the people, when we start to awareing the specifically the existing people living in the society, and when we start to giving the right guidance of the people, and when we start to awakening the people specifically for the existing evils in the society, right? So it is all about the rebirth, right? So 19th and the 20th century, when we are looking for the change, why we are doing for the change? Because we are completely not satisfying with the formation, the existing social and religious formation in the society. That's why we are looking for the change, and change is completely convert in the rebirth, reformation, Renaissance, and we can say Enlightenment. We definitely we can say the awareness, and definitely we can say we can say the awakening of the new people, those are completely not accepted, and the people are completely not satisfied with the existing formation of the society. Fine. So what about the age of the Enlightenment? Enlightenment in the Europe, 17th and 18th century. Right. The age of Enlightenment in the Europe is completely dependent on 17th and the 19th century. But whenever we're discussing about the Renaissance period in the European history, we can say it was a time period of the 11th and the 12th century. Fine. So what about the 12th, 11th and the, ठीक है, अभिषेक शाक्या जी आप हैं ना क्लास में? आपको क्लास में पढ़ने से ज्यादा मतलब है कि क्लास में होने से ज्यादा मतलब है? नाउ द एज ऑफ एनलाइटनमेंट, मुझे लगता है कि जब अगर आप यूपीएससी के पेपर में किसी भी पेपर में बैठते होंगे ना, तो आप अकेले बैठते होंगे, ना कि पूरे ग्रुप के साथ, झुंड के साथ बैठते होंगे. फाइन. So it is completely not up to the mark. You are asking or claiming that no one is in the class. So don't waste your time in the class, because the class and the time of mine specifically is very important and very crucial. Right. So if you are completely asking this type of, the question is not completely acceptable, definitely you can leave the session. Right. We are not needy of such type of students in the class. Now, what about the European? We are completely discussing about the 17th and the 18th century. And whenever you are discussing about the Renaissance period, the time phase of a Renaissance period in the European history was 11 till the moreover 13th century, where Renaissance period is was completely on the peak time in 12th century or in the 13th century. Fine. So what about the Renaissance period? Somehow we completely looking the same Renaissance period, we can say, with the changes with the Renaissance period in the Indian history, in the time phase of a 19th or the 20th century, in the social and the religious reformation. Right. Rational thinking, when we are looking for the thinking which is completely not biased. Fine. New political philosophies, when we are looking for the equality to everyone, and change social benefits, when we are looking for the people who are completely right. So what about the Mr. Abhishek? So don't waste your time here. You can completely leave the class right now. If the class is not completely up to the mark for you, so don't waste your time here. New political philosophy, change in the social benefits. And what about the social benefits, everyone? Social benefits is completely just discussing about the equal social status and emphasize on the science, where the characteristics of this enlightenment, where we are discussing about the new elements, the new concepts of the, we can say, enlightenment. And what about the new concepts and characteristics of the new enlightenment, when we are looking the aim of the Renaissance period, specifically in the Indian society in 19th and 20th century, where we are completely looking for the change of the existing the evils in the, specifically indulging in the social and the religious reformations, religious problems. Right. If we are looking the whole, we can see the slides here, we are just going to discussing about in India since the ancient time of the medieval era. We saw numerous of the religious and culture reformation on the movements, Bhakti, Sufis and etc. Right. So why in the 19th and the 20th century we are just looking for the religious reformations? Because whenever you discuss about the cult like Bhaktism and the Sufism, Bhaktism and the cult like Sufism, they are just discussing about the philosophies, right? And what type of the philosophy they are discussing? The philosophies they are discussing about the equality, right? The philosophies they are discussing about the no foundation in the caste, any of the community, any of the gender, men or women, they are completely liable to participate, they are completely entering in or adopting the cult like Bhaktism and Sufism. They are completely boycotting the idol worship, they are just completely involving themselves to meditate to the God, and they are just looking for the people who are completely just showing their rationalism or showing their unbiasedness to the society. And their reformation, their cultural reformation, it doesn't mean that it is biasness or bounded with some categories or some, we can say, the social aspects, the religious and the cultural reformation movement, we can say, is movement is not completely started by one person. Movement is completely started, or we can say just move ahead with the leadership, right? So in the Bhakti and the Sufism, we cannot forget the name like Kabir, we cannot forget about the name of Nanak, and Muinuddin Chishti we have in Sufism cult. So we have numerous of the people who are completely awareing the people specifically for religious movements, right? So what whenever you discuss about the change never started in the very sudden basis in 19th and 20th century. The change, or we can say the occurrence and the need of the change is already started in 15th or in the 16th century, when Bhaktism and Sufism was completely on the time of the peak, right? Now, from the 17th century onwards, the British were leaders in the Reformation in Europe, ideas of parliamentary over monarch and liberalism, right? So you can say whenever you discussing about the impact, right, how the impact is completely occurred, right, how the impact is completely occurred. We have a 17th century time phase in the European countries, right, in the European countries. Fine. And when we're discussing about the 17th century, 16th century and 18th century, basically in the Indian history, right, we can say whenever we're discussing about the impact, the whole impact is completely related with the rebirth. Not only in the Indian history, or we can say the Indian society as well. Right, but as well as in the European countries, right? So definitely whenever the European countries were just asking for their own liberation, and on their rights, definitely the things are completely impacted the Indian societies as well, right? So if you are asking about the rights and the equal rights, about the liberation in the European countries, the European Parliament, definitely the impact is completely happened in the Indian society or in the Indian parliamentary Indian system. Fine. Now, however, we can say in India, East India Company sided with the orthodox elements in order to consolidate their power and exploit the masses. For example, definitely we can say that East India Company is completely occupied and completely made India his own colony, right? So what they are doing, actually they are not completely showing the concern to Indian society, or they are not completely showing the concern for the reformation in the social and religious for the society and for the religion. And why they are doing, actually why they are just doing, because somehow they are just looking for the ruling power, that if the problem is definitely occurred in the society, the benefit is completely just favoring the East India Company. And the orthodox elements, what, when we are discussing about the orthodox social aspects, when the problems are completely related with the women, when the problems are completely with the caste system, the religion, the literature, the school, the education, they are completely not showing the concern to the Indian society or the Indian Renaissance period, because they are just looking for the consolidation for their power and exploit the masses, right? So the way they are exploit the masses, जितना ज़्यादा मासेस को या लोगों को एक्सप्लॉइट किया जाएगा, उतना ही ज़्यादा जो है बेनिफिट यहाँ पर ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी के लोगों को होगा. Now, in our previous lecture, we are just already saw how the East India Company made alliances, right? Yesterday's session, I already explained you everyone, and I already giving the example of a zamindari system and the princes to boost their unfair trade, that we are already giving the example of 1857. That I already giving the example of Awadh, that how they are completely capturing Awadh by just blaming the king, that the king was not completely the person who can completely go ahead with their own people, and thereby prevented their industrial revolution in India, right? And just because of it, we have a very good book of we can say glimpse of the world history of Nehru, where he completely mentioning about the British rule, right? There, where he completely mentioning about the British rule also helped the religious conservatives. And this sounds strange for the British claimed to profess, we can say, Christianity, and yet the commit made in Hinduism and in India more rigid, right? To some extent, we can definitely, this reaction was natural, as foreign invasion tend to make the religious and the cultural, the country protect themselves by rigidity. And definitely Nehru is just completely mentioning in a very straightforward sense of, we can say, humanity. And he just marked the question on the humanity, which is completely exploited by the East India Company. And he just saying that the East India Company is not completely consolidate or not completely showing the concern to the social and religious reformation, because just they are just looking for their own benefits. And it was this way that the Hinduism had become rigid. Because why rigid? Because in the 19th century we have a problems like caste system. We are the caste system, the problems is not completely existing in a particular section, right? Like in the Brahmanism, in the Hinduism, we can say the problems like we can say the rigidity and the problems like caste system completely enhanced slowly in rest of the sections, we can say the Christianity, and we can say definitely about the Sikhism as well, right? Now both Hinduism and the Islam, where in Islam, when we are discussing about the particular cult, when we are discussing about the Sufis, when we completely discussing about the Sufis, they reacted after this fashion. And how they reacted on the fashions. In Hinduism, we have a numbers of the religious cult, we can say Bhaktism, when we are completely accepted the policies like non-violence, when they are completely rejected about the idol worship, when they're completely allowing the people that if you are belonging any of a caste and creeds, you are completely join the Bhaktis sect and the Sufi sect as well as in Islam, where Sufism is completely just discussing about the equality and just avoiding the orthodox, and we can say avoiding the violences as well. On the another side, Islam completely reacted after this fashion. And how it is completely reacted this fashion, when they are completely accepted the superiority. And we have a very good example of 1906 about the Muslim League, when they are completely looking for their separate nation, when they are completely looking for their own presented rights, that how they can represent in front of the people, because they are just feeling they felt inferior as per the we can say the inferior as per the comparison with the other sect and other caste like Hinduism. And we have a very good example of a 1906, when they are completely looking for a separate Muslim community. And we have already a Muslim league in 1906 under Aga Khan, right? But after part of this, British government in India actually both deliberately and unconsciously helped the conservative elements in these two religions. And why they are started to help to main basic conservatives, because somehow they are just looking for their own benefits, and they are just looking for their own we can say the upliftment in the powers. Fine. And they were afraid of the interfering in any way in the religious matters. Let's the people in their anger rose against them. And why they are just make the people free? Why East India Company completely make the people free to showing their anger with each other, specifically for their each other religion? Because the way they are showing the anger and how much they are completely showing the anger, completely showing the orthodoxness with each other, they are completely using the policy of divide and rule. And the divide and rule policy is completely favoring by East India Company to come somewhere is weak, completely to make the people weaker, specifically from the social and the religious reformations, right? And why they are doing exactly, they are just doing because they know, they very much aware about each and every incidents, they are very much aware about each and every social aspects, because they are, if they are completely make the people free, if they are completely showing the concern to the people, surely the people are completely looking for the unity, right? And the way they are completely showing the unity, the position of the East India Company going to be weaker day to day. Fine. The fear of the irritating the orthodox people made the government side up with them in the matters of the reform. Hinduism and the Hindu law were in a many respects changing, progressive. right? And though the progress had been remarkable show in the recent centuries, for example, we have a very good example of a Dayanand Saraswati, the even we can say the formation of the revivalism, where he is completely looking for what, when he completely saying just come to back to the Vedas. And whenever we using the term Hinduism, right, whenever we using the term Hinduism, it doesn't mean that Hinduism is just taking the benefit of a particular section like Brahmanism. Hinduism is basically a very broad concept where definitely numbers of the philosophies completely existing in Hinduism. We have philosophies like Vishishtadvaita, we have a Vaishnavism, we have a Shaivism, we have the Sufi, we have a Bhakti's cult, we have a Ram Krishna cult, we have a numbers of the cult where they are just representing their philosophy in a very different manner. Hinduism doesn't mean that we are completely bifurcating or we are completely boycotting or we somewhere completely adapting the hierarchy and the orthodox progressive nature of the particular caste and system whenever discussing about Brahmanism and other sects of the caste. Hindu law itself is largely custom, and customs change and grow. The elasticity of the Hindu law disappeared under the British and gave place to rigid legal codes drawn up after consultations with the most orthodox people. And what is happening at the last? Grow of a Hindu society is slow, definitely. When you completely bounding the people, that they are, when you completely stop the interaction, when you completely blaming the people for their own divide and rule policy. So what is happening at the last? Surely the Muslim descendant the new condition even more and more retired into their shells. Fine. And in the we can see definitely in the early 19th century and from the beginning of the 19th century, Western ideas of reformation and liberalism were being introduced, right? And why it is happening actually did not affect the masses and impacted the government servants and the professional people. English educated Bengali youth started opposing the orthodox religious rituals. Fine. What about the meaning of the Westernization, right? Whenever you discussing about the term Reformation, Reformation is showing what? Reformation is showing about the formation of something new, right? When you start to make something new policies, when you start to making something new ideologies, when you start to improving the existing formation that we have already. Fine. So what about the wording of Raja Ram Mohan Roy in 1828? We can say definitely where Raja Ram Mohan Roy is completely founded we can say about Brahmo Samaj. Somehow the policies of the Reformation and the ideology of the Reformations completely adapting all the ideas, and as per the need of the Reformation they are just looking for the change, right? It doesn't matter that Westernization impacted. As per the opinion of the Raja Ram Mohan Roy, he always said we are completely liable to choose the good ideas from any of the country's ideologies, either the ideology is completely belonging from Westernization or the modernization. Fine. And what is happening at the last? Liberalism is completely discussing about the freedomness, about the we can say the equality, and liberalism in what? In the society, right? In the economy, in the polity, in the administrative section. Liberalism is showing somehow when we are completely think freely without any foundation or without any question mark, without any rigidity. Fine. So did not affect the masses. And what is happening at the last, when the people are living in India and when they start to pursuing their own profession, they are just completely impacted with this type of the policy like liberalism, the equality, the awareness, the enlightenment, the policies like Renaissance. And English educated Bengali youth, basically Bengal was the reason specifically for 19th and 20th century where numbers of the literature specifically based on the Reformation, the social reformation, where numbers of the movements were already started. The movements like the girls empowerment, the women rights. We have numbers of the school and colleges existing in Bengal. So specifically the English education in Bengal youth started opposing orthodox religious rituals. And what about the orthodox religious rituals? It means when we are not completely allowing the other caste people to participate or to contributing themselves in the existing religion, not only Bengal but in the context of the whole India. or the pan India. Under such circumstances, definitely two schools of the reactions develop. So what is happening actually? So definitely two schools are just going to be emerged slowly when we are discussing about the Reformation and about the revival movements. The both terms are very important. We can say the both terms, the Reformation and the revivalism, they are somehow a very important. Right, when you're discussing about the Reformation movements and we can say about the revivalism, question the supreme status of the religious text, right? When they started to ask the question on the supremacy, we can say the supremacy on the status of the religious text and try to be modernize the society based on the needs of the time, right? And what is the needs of the time in 19th and 20th century? See, this line is a very prominent and we can say very important as per the, we can say, topic. Need of the time is what? When we are looking for a space and a time. When we are looking for the space and the time. Right, whenever you are arising the question specifically for the women, definitely the condition of the women in the Vedic age, the condition of the women in post-Vedic age is specifically different. There is a no, we can say, match as well. But what about the time phase of a 19th and 20th century, specifically for the women's situation, when the women, specifically the women in the post-Vedic era, they were completely not liable to asking about their own rights. And not only the past Vedic era, from the Gupta age, from the pre-medieval age, from the post-medieval phase, and from the beginning of the modern era as well, women were not completely asking about their own rights, their own voting rights, their own upliftment, their own education, their own empowerment, right? So what about is happening in 19th and 20th century actually? The need and the time is completely changed, and what is the need is exactly when we are completely aware, right? When we are looking for the need, when we are looking for the survival. So what is that? Time is completely impacted as per the need. The need as you enhance, definitely your time is completely changed. अगर आपकी नीड यूपीएससी क्वालिफाई करना है तो डेफिनेटली यू हैव टू मैनेज योर टाइम एवरीवन फाइन. Sorry, what about, that's why Brahmo Samaj, Pratna Samaj and the Aligarh movement, they are somehow a very prominent movement we can say, right? And Brahmo Samaj is basically founded by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, fine. Pratna Samaj is somehow is completely again discussing about and favoring is what? Modernized society. Modernized society when we are looking for the changes, right? When we are looking for the improvements, when we are looking for the new implementations, fine. For example, in the Reformation, the people completely related with Aligarh movement, we can say Brahmo Samaj or in the Pratna Samaj. I would like to mention the example of Aligarh movement. Fine, Aligarh movement basically is we can say the is completely happened in the sake for the awareing of the Muslim classes, we can say, and Islam as well. So Aligarh movement is completely supporting the scientific education as well as the modernized education, English education and the Western education, right? Western countries as well, because as per the need of the Aligarh movement, their philosophies is completely looking for the modernization and the change. As per the opinion, they are completely agreed that if we really want to change something in the society, and in any of the country from the whole world, if we are looking for any benefits, अगर हमें कहीं से भी कुछ अच्छा मिल रहा है तो उसको अडॉप्ट करने में कोई बुराई नहीं है. Fine. And what about the revivalism movement? Revivalism movement is basically, we can say, just somehow is the roots of the Indian society, the Indian civilization, and just looking for the Indian culture. When they are looking the change in the existing society, they do not want to implement anything else from the outside, right? So to be revive the religious text like the Vedas, we have Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Athara Veda, and build a more traditional society. So how can you make your society more traditional? You only can make your society more traditional when you are completely looking for the when you completely try to be connect the people with the tradition, right? When you completely aware the people that what is the exact definition of a Rig Veda, Sama Veda and Athara Veda, and when you start to completely aware the people that what is the importance of your tradition, right? So that's why we have a very good example, like if I am just giving the example of Arya Samaj, they were the movement. Arya Samaj was the movement which is completely started and founded by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Sorry, Dayanand Saraswati. I'm really sorry, Dayanand Saraswati. And Dayanand Saraswati is somehow completely supporting the revival movements and the just want to aware the people about the existing tradition of Indian society. That's why he just giving the slogan of back to the Vedas. It means we have to be not. It doesn't mean that we start to read the Vedas. Fine. It completely somehow guiding the people that you have to be taste your tradition first of all. Rather we start to finding numbers of the mistakes, rather we start to blaming any of the we can say the literature, anything else which is existing in the society. It is very important to understand the importance of the Vedas, the literatures, the Arnakyas, the Smritis, the Upanishads, and as per the opinion of the revival movements, the Devband and the Arya Samaj, that we have a lots of information in the Vedas, right? We have a lots of the information in the Vedas, and to getting the information in the Vedas, there is a no need to go here and there. It is very important to just choose the tradition, and it is very important to contribute. It is a very important to showing your contribution and showing your dedication to understand, to know the tradition in a very well manner. Fine. So this is the huge differentiation between social reformation and revivalism. And in this session again I would like to mention about the social scope of the history, right? How the scope of history is working actually. See, whenever you are looking for the scope of the history, it means when we are looking for the broadness of the history. Fine. And what about the broadness of the history of everyone? When we are looking for the interdisciplinary approach, definitely when we are looking for the social reformation, your social reformation never ever succeeded, and your social reformation never ever just go ahead without the help of the we can say the reformation. So that's why in this session we are completely just discussing about the social with the religious as well. The social and the religious as well, right? That how the social and the religious reformation completely impacted the society. Fine, completely impacted the people. So it is very important to understand the broad concepts and how you will completely how you will completely develop the broad concept, everyone. When you start to know the use of the methods and techniques of two or more other disciplines in historical research. See, whenever you're doing the historical research, how I think it is completely not possible to discuss about one dimension. Whenever you're doing the historical research, doesn't matter the topic is A, B, C or Z, it doesn't matter. Completely, whenever you're discussing about the historical research is not completely the topic of a one dimension, where you completely mentioning a difference of the dimensions and different dimensions, completely showing the dedication of the and completely somehow providing you the broad concepts of the society, broad concepts of the topics, right? So how you can get the broad concepts of the how you can get the knowledge and how you can get the broad concepts of any of the topic when you try to be mention the whole dimension of each and every aspects. Definitely you can mention about the society, surely you can mention about the culture, the religion, the administrative, and definitely about the polity. And whenever you try to be connect the things with the current parts, and how you can directly connect the topic with the current parts when you have already a very good enhanced knowledge of it. Fine. So social and economic and religious and administrative political, for example, if you are discussing about the social and religious, what you are going to discuss about, it is you are just completely discussing about the impact. You are just completely discuss about the impact and how the impact is occurred actually when you're discussing about the society. When you are completely discuss about in society, we have a definitely numbers of the problems in the society. We have a problems like completely related with the women. We have a problem like caste system. We have a discriminations. We have a not going to providing a social equal status everyone to everyone. Fine. And what about the economy? When we have a very huge, we can say a very vital problem, specifically in 19th and 20th century, when we are not going to provide the social or the social equality to the peasantry class, that specifically when we are not going to provide the irrigation facilities as well. And what about the religion? That I already giving the example of a orthodox class who are belonging from the rigid mentality or thinking, when they were not completely providing the knowledge of the Vedas to the rest of the classes. Fine. And what about the cultural? Definitely India is completely a diverse country, and in the diverse country we are completely looking for the diversion in everything, either the diversion in the religion, in the society, in the economy. So we are not completely allowing the people, and the people whom not going to allowing the people, the East India Company and the Britishers, they are not completely allowing the people to participate, to contribute in any of the cultural progressness, because the people are completely participating in the cultural events and traditions. So somewhere the we can say we can say the scaredness of the unity, right? I'm just looking for the right word. The scaredness of the unity definitely arising day to day, and they are just suffering with the we can say with the problem of the unity of the Indians, and somewhere they are not completely uplifted their own power on the same position. So these are the problems everyone. Administrative and polity, definitely we can say, definitely in the social religious problem we are not going to choose the administrative and the political history, but definitely whenever we discuss about the social and the religious reformations, how the reformation is completely going to be make permanent, how you can make your reformation completely permanent, when you start to choosing your administrative policies and your political policies in a very fine manner. For example, if I am giving the example of a Sati Act, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and with the contribution of the William Banting, definitely we are just going to done the act on sati system in 1829, and from that time of 1829 still we are very much aware about the act, right? So what is happening actually when we start to making act and when we start to making rules, regulation and laws? Rules, regulations and laws somehow just awareing the people, and they are just somehow hit the mind of the people that we are not completely liable to repeat the existing evils or the evils that we earlier repeated. Fine. So what is happening actually, political and administrative somehow is giving the satisfaction level that we have completely liable to adopting a progressive system, as well as we are somehow completely liable to making the acts. For example, we have a very good example of not only Sati Act, we have a widow remarriages acts, we have a child marriages act, and somehow later on after freedom we have a exact political and administrative system. We are launching a system earlier, which is completely our constitution, which is completely providing the equal opportunities to everyone. Fine. So and it is very important to understand the recent trends of the UPSC and the history relation, everyone. For example, if I am giving the example of equality, if I am giving the example of non-violence, if I am giving the example of women empowerment, definitely in the present time yet we have completely just discussing about Hindu law code, we have a widow remarriages act, we have a dowry systems as well, right? Restrictions on dowry system as well. So we have numbers of the examples. So while giving the exact provision, while writing the your answers, you have to be mentioned and try to be connect everything with your present current events or present current about the current updates. You can use it, right? Try to be correlate everything with the current part, not everything. If you are feeling comfortable to mentioning, otherwise you can directly choose the question, write down and just go ahead. Fine. And what about the introduction in the question, everyone? You can definitely you are looking the same slide that we are discussing earlier. From the earlier 19th century, debates and discussions about the social customs and practices to a new character. Now, due to the development of the new forms of the communication. For example, in the present time we have a 19th and we have a 20th century, right? If I am discussing about the 21st century, we have a numerous of the topics for the debates and the discussion, right? From the past 2 or 3 months, we have a different act. If you are looking the sologamy, fine. I think exactly we already heard about sologamy, right? When the girl is not looking for the groom and she just going to be married with herself only, fine. So I'm just giving the example of the 19th and the 20th century. So what is happening on that time actually? Earlier, from 18th or 20th century, we don't have any discussions, we don't have any debates on Sati Act, we don't have any debates on widow remarriages, we don't have any debates on the social evils and social issues. But suddenly what is happening in 18th, 19th and 20th century, after the arriving of after the arriving of Raja Ram Mohan Roy in India specifically, after that the debates and the, we can say, the discussion completely started on the social evils, the social custom, the social status as well. Why they are doing this? Because the people are completely knowledgeable somewhere. They are completely getting the information with the help of literature, with the help of discussion, with the help of debates. And not only the men but as well as the women is completely just get out from their home and they're just looking for their own rights, because they have a already very good communication. Communication is what? When we start to talk, when we start to discuss anything with each other, right? And various reforms like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Swami Dayanand Saraswati persuaded people to give up degraded age-old traditions like sati, like child marriages, polygamy, when the man is completely allowed to marry numbers of the women, right? Female infanticide, etc., by adopting the new way of a life, right? So how you can get the new way of a life? Definitely you can get the new way of a life, surely, when we are completely looking for the changes in the society, when we're looking for the social reformation in the society. Fine, everyone. Now, they were keen to separate knowledge of the modernization, the country, and bring about a greater, we can say, freedom and equality for the women, lower caste people. Specifically, what about that? When you're discussing about the modernization and the social change, definitely we can say the modernization and the social change, they both are two sides of a one coin. How we can say two sides of one coin? Because modernization is just looking for the change, just looking for the change, acceptance of a new trends, and definitely when we are looking for the implementation, right? Implementation is what? Implementation means what? When we looking for the implementation, the change we getting, the accepted new trends we are getting, it is completely implemented in the society or where we are needed, right? So this is somehow correlated. And what about the social change, everyone? Social change is completely occurring, everyone. Definitely it is occurring, or it is completely happened. What social change? When we are surely accepted that whatever we are doing, whatever we are just going to change, whatever we are just going to accept it or implemented in the society is completely up to the mark, right? And how the social changes occur? Definitely the social changes occurred only when we are ready to accept the change, right? It is a very big debate, specifically that we have a problems, we have a evils, we have suffered with crimes, we are just suffer with the women, the problems like the women empowerment, we have a numerous of the problems in the society. Not only the change about the women, not only change about the child marriages, not only the change in the existing evils, social change is it is completely never ended. It is difficult to count actually. So what is happening actually, the change is only happened when we are looking for acceptance. And how is it possible to accept the change? It is completely implemented only when you are completely liable to accept the change. Whenever you're discussing about the definition of the modernization and the Westernization, the change is only happening when you are looking for the implementation, the acceptance and the implementation and the positive aspects of the change, right. For example, we have earlier I'm giving the example of a sologamy, everyone, which is completely giving the definition when the girl is completely married with herself, right. So what is happening actually, it is somehow a complete obstacle. We can say it is somehow a very big strata in the Indian society, that the society like India, right, if we have an example of a 377, we have a numbers of the example. These traditions and these trends are not completely acceptable by Indian society. But how the changes occurred, when we completely enhance our intellectuality, when we are completely looking the broad concepts and broad social changes in our mindset in the society, when we start to educate the people about the recent trends in the society, specifically when we are looking for the individual equality and the individual progressive natures. Fine. So what is happening exactly, when we are looking for the knowledge, the greater freedom and the specifically for the equality for the women, and when we start to bifurcating the people who are completely imposing and somehow not completely accept the change in the lower caste societies. Fine. So what about the body, everyone? It is very important to discuss about the change, or we can say that definitely the differentiation between modernization and the Westernization, that how it is exactly work, right. The Westernization and the modernization, specifically in the terminologies, we say modernization is a process, right. It is never ended. Earlier I already giving the example of a civilization and the culture. What is happening in the civilization, it is completely ended after the time, but definitely we grasp numbers of the things. But what about the culture? Culture is completely in consistency, in continuity. We grasping, we sometimes we just living, but sometimes we adapting, sometimes we accepting as well. So what about the exact definition of Westernization? Westernization is the process, right. It is not completely never ended process. It is completely in continuity, it is completely in consistency. Fine. And what about the culture, and where we are completely we can say imitation of a culture and the values of the Western countries by non-Western countries, right. When we start to imitate, nakal karna जिसे कहते हैं, it is when we start to completely imitate of anything. We have a very good example of a fast food. We have a very good example of a Westernization clothes. We have a very good example of adopting the Western, routines as well. So we have a numbers of the examples. Westernization is a process. It is a different definition. But when you start to choosing, when you start to imitate any of the process of Westernization, it is completely up to you. It is completely individual decision as well. Right. Westernization never allowing that you start to kill the person. It is completely up to you. If you are completely liable that you कि भाई आपको ये नहीं acceptable है, तो you are not completely enforcing, you are not completely accept, we can say कोई जोर जबरदस्ती नहीं है कि you have to accept everything. Fine. And on the other hand, modernization has a wider connotation. It is completely a wider concept. How the wider concept is working actually, when you are completely working on your intellectual ideas. Fine. Definitely if you want to adopt the Westernization culture, it is very important to adapt the good things. As earlier I giving the example of Raja Ram Mohan Roy about the exactly, I'm giving the example of Raja Ram Mohan about the social reformation, the Aligarh movement as well. When they're completely accepted about the modernization, that it is completely wider connotation or wider concepts as well. We're adopting the modern style of a modern ways, the ideas of thinking, the way we thinking specifically. And what about the living? When we're looking for the living ideas, the living lifestyles, and modernization is a change of modification which offers the promises of the preservation of the past. Modernization is what? When we're looking for the modification. For example, if I'm giving the example, when I'm giving the example of widow remarriages, why we are making the acts on it, right? Earlier we started to making numbers of the act on it. Why we are doing actually? Because we are looking for their future as well, right? अगर आप किसी विडो को अगर उसके जीने के अधिकार को नहीं अगर दे रहे हैं, तो what is happening at the last? either she is completely lost her life, or either she completely adopting something else which is not completely up to the mark for her exactly. So what is happening when we're looking for the modification? The promises of the preservation of the past, that the past, whatever we have already, right, in the past, if I'm already giving the example of in the statement of a Dayanand Saraswati, that back to the Vedas, and we have a numbers of the things in already in the Indian society, that from where we can learn a lot, where from where we can implement numbers of the things. It is completely up to you that what you want to exactly adopted. You really want to go ahead with the westernization, or either you have to go with the modernization. Fine, it is completely up to you, but in both the cases it is very important to understand the importance of the westernization as well, or in the importance of the modernization as well. Modernization, on the other hand, just discussing about the modification, the rational thinking, and just preserving the past, but also just showing the concern about the future as well. But what about the westernization is completely just looking for the progressness, the consistency, the never ending process. It is completely up to you what you really want to choose. If you really want to choose westernization, it is somehow is completely dependent on your continuity and your progressiveness. But what about the imitation? It is completely your choice. If you want to choose the culture of westernization, it is you have to be choose that you want to imitate, कि नकल करना चाहते हैं कि उससे कि आपका कुछ फ्यूचर में भला होने वाला है, राइट. सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द वी कैन से द डेफिनेशन और डिफरेंशिएशन बिटवीन वेस्टर्नाइजेशन और द मॉडर्नाइजेशन. नाउ you can see the next slide on the screen, everyone. This is completely showing the differentiation between westernization and the modernization, and I hope my screen is completely visible, everyone. And I already giving the example as well of the modernization and the westernization. I don't think so there is a much needed for the explanation, everyone, right? I hope it is completely. Dental world, very good afternoon. See, Jignasha, Jignasha, it is a very important to, first of all, it is a very important to prepare yourself, that it is very important to make yourself more disciplined about the getting the knowledge. It is a very important to work on the concepts as well, right? And you have to prepare for prelims first of all, and then mains, then later on when you will qualify both the steps, then you will go ahead with the interview and going to become a administrative. But definitely whenever you discussing about the preparation of the UPSC, this is not a one day preparation. It is completely consistent, and it is completely a continuous process. You have to be work hard for it, and you cannot get the results might be in the first attempt. But definitely if you're going to be prepare yourself, if you completely just looking for yourself, just want to make your dream true, definitely you can just putting your hard work, hard efforts, Jignasha. Fine. So preparation, UPSC preparation, it doesn't mean that it's a one day process. It's a completely gradual process. It is completely taking more over your 18 months, sometimes more time from you. So you have to first of all you have to prepare yourself mentally, right? Let's do work on the concepts. Start reading the NCERT books. You have a both the channels, the bilingual Hindi or English, and the example channel or YouTube channel, which is completely free of cost. So you can definitely watch all the sessions as well, Jignesha. Fine. Now what about the comparison of between the westernization and the modernization? Westernization is ethically neutral. Fine. And westernization is used to behavior and the value aspects. Fine. Homogeneity basically we are discussing. Modernization, we can say normally what is happening actually, sense, what is the sense, that is a good. Fine. The when we normally used, and modernization is involves change in social and political organization when we're looking for the change. Fine. Where we can say modernization is completely a continued process. It's a process, right? And what about the modernization? When we're looking for the change in the existing process. When we're looking for the change in existing in the existing process, right? And what about the existing process, everyone? For example, we have a very good example of a women sati act only. We have a very good example of a sati act, sati system, we can say. The first evidence of a sati system we already got in 4th century, specifically in the Aaron inscription in Gupta phase, right? In the 4th century. And when we just thinking for making for the act in 1829, right? You can say you almost taking 1400 years. 1400 years. It is such a very huge time, everyone. We are just taking. Dental word, just give me a moment. Fine. When we're looking for a sati system, this is all, we are just suffering from last 1400 years. And in 1829, when finally Raja Ram Mohan Roy and William Bentinck completely making the act on it, right? So you can say that what about the change in the existing process? This is the process that we are following from last 1400 years. And what is happening in the process and what is the change in this process when we are looking for the act in 1829? That now that you are not completely liable to, forcing any of the women without her desire to sati with his system, with his husband, sorry. Dental world is just asking, man, for an individual imitation of a character can also be modernization. So how both are different? Dental world, I think you are not getting the definition properly. I am just asking that what about your individual imitation? Individual imitation is completely happening in the westernization but not in the modernization, right? It is completely your decision. Individual, when we are saying that we are individual personalities, every individual personalities has on its own choice. If you want to go ahead with westernization, definitely westernization is somehow just thinking about the process. It's a process, it's a never ending process. Fine. So for example, it is completely up to you if you want to choose the fast food, if you'll go ahead with the traditional food. Fine, it is completely your choice. And what about the westernization? That modernization is already a process. Fine, but we are just looking for the change in the existing process. And why we are looking for the change? Because we are not completely satisfying with the existing society, the existing evils. Is it possible कि अगर आपको कोई ऐसी चीज पसंद नहीं है, जबरदस्ती अगर आपसे करवाया जाए, then you are just going to accept कि हाँ हम कर लेंगे? Fine. Now, so you can say Raja Ram Mohan Roy abolished for sati system in 1829. Fine. And 1918th century reform aimed to modernization rather than westernization. Right. The aim of these reforms were never to be replace the local culture of India with the Western culture. There is a differentiation in both the lines. See, the first line they are completely just saying about they said ki modernization rather than the westernization. They are just completely want to change the whole structure of the Indian society. It doesn't mean that they are somehow just wanted to replacing the Indian society with the Western culture. Fine. In the Western culture, we have a numbers of the things to be learned. Knowledge, if I'm just going to discuss about the knowledge have really don't have any foundations. You can get the knowledge from America as well. You can get the knowledge from Canada as well. You can get the knowledge of China as well. Every country or every culture, every tradition of the whole world, we have a numbers of the good things to be learned. Remember it. I'm again repeating my line. In the whole world, in any tradition, in any culture, in any festival, in any of the person as well, we have a numbers of the things to be learned, right? If I'm giving the example of an individual person as the question asked in dental world, I'm just saying that we have a numbers of the things to be adopted. We have a numbers of the things to be, it is completely up to you what we exactly want to learn. If you want to choose the crime, it is completely our choice. If you want to choose the UPSC, it is completely our choice, right? So the same thing is just happening in the 19th and the 20th century. Then what is happening actually, that what is they are just looking for the westernization culture, because they just want to choose the good things from the westernization. It doesn't mean that they are somehow completely replacing the Indian society. Fine, everyone. And what about the aim of this reformation? Again, we are just totally clear that replace the local culture. And what is the local culture, everyone? Local culture, when we are discussing about the orthodox, we can see the rigid behavior of the people who are belonging from the hierarchy, from the higher classes, and they are just looking for the when they are not completely giving the equal status or equal right to the all person. So they just want to change the local culture. Why they just want to change the local culture? So that completely, if they are completely change the local culture, people are just thinking about their own upliftment, thinking about their own development, and the society and the religion, the evils in the society and the religion gradually changed, gradually changed. Now let's me discuss about, you can see number of the people on the screen, everyone, right? You can see about Radha Ram Mohan Roy. You have a Veer Shalingam from Karnataka, Kerala. We have a Ishwachandra Vidyasagar, we have a Jyotiba Phule, and we have a Mr. Ambedkar as well. See, you have a numbers of the personality on the screen, everyone. I think the personality which I am showing on the screen, they are completely not completely matter of introduction. They are completely not the part or not the matter of introduction, everyone. Definitely, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who is completely considered as a father of Renaissance as well, and father of modern India as well. Fine, if I'm discussing about our Indian designatory people, rather they have a simplified, eliminated, we can say, eliminated some Western values which they saw desirable for the development of society, such as humanism. And what is the definition of the humanism? When we are looking for the equality for every person, when we are looking for the equality for every gender, right? Either you are belonging from any of the society or any of the category or any of the caste and sect. Fine. So they are just emphasizing moreover on the interpretation, and how you can emphasizing the interpretation when completely you are just looking for the scriptures and just looking for the simplification of the rituals rather than out rigidity, imitation, westernization. So what is the simplicity of the our scriptures? Simplicity of our scripture, when you start to giving the knowledge of everyone. And how you will giving the knowledge of everyone? When you start to teaching or preaching everyone that none of the Vedas or none of the epics is mentioning about the sati, and none of the Vedas and none of the any of the epics not mentioning about caste system. Fine. And so whenever discuss about Swami Vivekananda, one of the, we can say, the prominent leader, a youth leader in the Indian society, and still we are respecting a lot. In 12th of the January, where every day we are celebrating as a youth day. Or in India, we are moreover existing a youth of moreover 65% of the youth we are existing in India, right? And Swami Vivekananda sought to be bring reform through reinterpretation. And what is reinterpretation? When you start to reinterpret anything again. Fine. Vedas in the context of the changing world. And what is the context of the changing world? When he completely stress his ideas, the social service and the selfless action. And what is selfless action? As per the opinion of Swami Vivekananda, when he is completely describing their selfless action to just taking the action for the social reformation, just reforming the people, awareing the people, and just awareing the whole world about Indian culture, Indian traditions, right? I think you people have a very much awareness specifically about Chicago, about the Chicago I think visit of Swami Vivekananda, where he is completely mentioning about India is such a very great and diverse country, and where he completely mentioning about that how the power of a youth, how the power of a youth is completely changing the whole world with his own energies, with their own energies. Fine. So the completely, we can say, the heat stressed on the ideal of a social service. And what is the ideal of a social service? When we are giving the equal status and equality to every person who is completely suffering with the evils in the existing society. And the selfless section is what? When you are not thinking about your only yourself, when you started to consider the whole world as a family, when you started to promoting the Indian tradition, Indian culture on the next level, or we can say on the international as well. Fine. So let's move ahead, everyone. Dental world, modernization can change in our beliefs, westernization, simple imitation of the other culture. No, I don't think so. You are giving the good definition of modernization, but westernization doesn't mean that you're imitating anything. Westernization is a process. If you start imitating from westernization, it is completely your fault. And social reformation specifically is not completely focusing on the westernization imitation. It is completely the revivalism of the existing Vedas and existing scriptures. It is the next definition of scriptures and the Vedas as well. Fine. Similarly, Raja Ram Mohan Roy had a great respect for the Western way of thinking, yet they almost respect and the importance of the Vedas and the Upanishads. Right? So what is saying? The Raja Ram Mohan Roy is completely accepting is what? Is completely accepting the Western way of thinking. Western way of thinking, it doesn't mean that we are imitating anything. It is completely is Western thinking. It means when we're completely discussing about the equality, the liberalization, the broad concept, the broad thinking, the individual intellectual thinking, right? It is all about the thinking and not only about the imitation. And on the other hand, when the Raja Ram Mohan Roy is completely preaching the people or somehow is just discussing with the people that यहाँ पर इनका मतलब ये नहीं है कि that we are going to choose a westernization culture. It is completely we can say the showing the people's the importance of the Vedas and the Upanishads, right? Because I already told you that none of the Vedas and Upanishads is just discussing about the sati system, not discussing about the women exploitation. Any of the Vedas, Upanishads, Arnyakas, Samritis, Brahmans, none of the text and scriptures of the India in the whole we can say India, it doesn't matter you are belong from any of the caste and creed, none of the Quran, Gita, Christian Bible is not discussing about anything of the discrimination, about the inequality, about the women exploitation, right? So this is somehow is the way to teaching or preaching the people religiously, right? So their thinking and their adaptability, we can say the acceptance of anything is going to be concreted later on. Now, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar used the ancient text to suggest that widows could remarry, definitely, and his suggestions were adopted by a British official, and the law was passed in 1856, permitting widow remarriages, right? So, educator and extraordinary, if I'm just discussing about Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, I think 4 or 5 days ago, I already giving the whole knowledge about Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. And Vidyasagar was a person who was not completely a social reformer. He is educationist as well. He is we can see the politician as well. He is somehow a person who is completely giving the broad ideas and broad thinking and providing the intellectual ability and just preaching the people about all the social and all the religious equality to the person. He completely boycotted the orthodox people who are completely not supporting the people who are suffered actually in the society. And Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar himself as a belonging from a Kulini class or the Brahman class, but still he is completely boycotted the ideology, the thinking of the Brahman class, everyone. Fine. So what about the philosopher, academic, educator, writer, translator, printer, publisher, entrepreneurship and reformer and philosophers? So this is somehow is a very complete person, we can say. And the key feature of the Bengal Renaissance, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar was born on September 26, 1820, and somehow it is completely known as a key feature of the Bengal Renaissance. right? We can say as we consider Raja Ram Mohan Roy as the father of Renaissance in Indian history, somehow Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar is considered as a father of Renaissance in Bengal only. Fine. So you can say such thinkers, a Hindu widow marriage. It is somehow a complete book by Brian Hatcher. It is somehow a very, very good book, everyone, where he completely mentioning about the ideology and the thinking of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and how Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar completely tried to be uplifted the women in 19th and 20th century, and how he tried to be preaching the people, and how he completely giving the information or awakening the people, specifically the social evils, not only for the women but completely. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar is giving the we can say the exact a positive pressure on the education as well. So such a thinker was against certain social evils like sati, adultery, and we can say the polytheism and untouchability, and but they were believe in the essence of scriptures. Essence of scripture is what? That if how the scriptures is just explaining about the truth, and not that was one compatible with the modern notion of the equality and the dignity of all the individuals. Fine. Now, educator and extraordinary, which I already mentioning about, introduced the practice of the we can say widow remarriages, pushed the Widow Remarriages Act on 1856. Right, Sati Act we can say 1829. Fine, and reconstructed we can say the Bengali alphabet and reformed Bengal typography into the alphabet of a 12 vowels and the 40 connotations. We can say definitely he worked for the literature when he started to educate the people. And Rabindranath Tagore or Vidyasagar's death, he completely saying that one wonders how God is completely is equal to the 40 million people, right? Now, and India, we are just going to discuss about the we can say the next personality on the screen. And in India, social reform did not ordinary mean a reorganization of the structuring of a society at a large as it did the West for the benefits of the unprivileged social and economic classes, right? So what is happening about instead of the meaning, while society would be preserved, and while its members would be transformed. And how they are completely transformed, right? When Jyotiba Phule is completely just thinking about the society, and he completely pressurized the society to accept the positive aspects of the society, and society would be preserved and while its members would be transformed. How you can transform? When you start to educate the people, when you start to awakening the people, when you start to aware the people about the social evils, when you start to count down all the scientific benefits of the reformations in the society and in the religion as well, right? We have when we discuss about the conclusion of the whole section, that what we learned actually from the social reformation answer writing. So what about the conclusion? That it is an important we can say pressure on the reformation completely existing in the society as well as the economy, as in economy and the religion as well. And conclusion is basically the evaluation of the modern India, evaluation in the modern India. And what about the modern India evaluation? When the modern India evaluation discussing about the change in the change in the existing process. Fine. When you start to enlighten the people, when you start to develop and the rationalization of the modern outlook, when we completely looking for the change in the complete modern outlook. And by the end of 20th century, women themselves were actively working for reform. That we have a very good example of a Margareta sisters. We have a very good example of a participation of Amrita Kaur as well. They wrote books, edited magazines, founded schools and training centers. That we have a very good example of a Jyotiba Phule. That we develop a first. We have a Carve's educationist who completely developed the female educations. schools of female educations, and they wrote, and these women later on joined the various kinds of nationalist and socialist movements and contributed immensely in the freedom struggle, right? So we have a very good example that in the freedom struggle how they are completely participating in it, when they are completely aware about their own rights, that they have a right to get out of the home, and they have their own rights to speak against the evils, right? Okay, let me sum up the lecture, everyone, in the few lines. Let me discuss about the question. First of all, your question is discussing about the social and the religious reformations, right? This was your question, reformation. And what they are asking about the impact of what? The modernization, and the westernization. The impact of the modernization and the westernization, right? Specifically in 20th century, 19th and 20th century. This was your question. So what we did actually in the question, everyone, we just frame out the question in a 3 segment. The first segment about the introduction. Okay, no, the first segment we are just making the approach first of all, that what we understand with the question. So what we discuss in the approach, everyone? What we discuss in the approach, first of all, we are just discussing in the approach. Okay, so we are just discussing in the approach in the we are just bifurcated the approach in 3 parts. Number 1, when we completely understand the question, how we understand the question, right? Understand the questions. Fine. Number 2, when we start to choose the keywords, right? When we start to choose the dimension of the question, कि question जा कहाँ रहा है, question के बारे में question कहना क्या चाहता है, right? So we are just choosing the approach. Fine. And what about the introduction? So later on, when we completely understand the approach of the question, the keywords of the question, and when we completely understand what is the dimension of the question, either the dimension is completely based on the society, either the dimension is completely based on the economy, either the question is completely based on the religion. So what is the dimension? So we are just completely fit up the understanding of the question, that we are just going to discuss this is this that in the question. What is the final outcome of the question on the paper? So what is happening actually? We are just going to make the heading on the introduction, right? So what we are just going to write down the key points in the introduction. We are just going to write down about the introduction, that what is the social and the religious reformation, right? Number 2, we are just going to discuss about what? We are going to discuss about the role of what? The rebirth, we can say Renaissance as well in 19th and 20th century, right? Or we are just going to discuss about one thing which is very important, the role of a rebirth in 19th and 20th century, and what is the need we can say discuss. Need, what is the need we can say aim as well. Aim, I think a better word. And what are the objectives, why we want to introduce. Fine. And it is a one more very important point we can say in the introduction, when we are going to discuss how the modernization and the westernization and the Westernization impacted, right, of social and religious movement, social and religious movement in 20th century, right? So introduction, we are just going to divide in 2 or 3 segments. We have a 1, 2, 3 and 4. 4 points we have. Now next we are just going to discuss about the mid body. What are the points that we are going to add in mid body? First of all, right, we are just going to discuss about a very, we can say, the important points, everyone. The first point is completely discussing about the social and the religious movements, right, about the social and the religious movements. Right, and in this social and religious movement we are just going to discuss about the evils, right, the role of the we are just going to discuss about the role of the reformers, right, the role of the reformers. And reformers, we have a numerous of the names. We have a Raja Ram Mohan Roy, we have Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, we have a Dayanand Saraswati, right, we have a Vivekananda, we have a numbers of the Pratna Samaj, Brahmo Samaj, Arya Samaj, Aligarh movement we have, right, we have a numbers of the names. Now next point, just discussing about the need, sorry, we can say the aim. Aim is what? Aim, we just want to improve, or we can say reform, right? And how you can reform yourself? You can only reform yourself by making the act, by making the laws, by impacted the laws and we can only act and laws. What are the actors and laws? It is very important to we can say differentiate the term between, right, reform and revival, right. It is very important to understand, or we can say very important to mention about the, what we can say, the difference you have to mention. What are the differences actually? So in the next the problems, we can say what were the existing evils in 19th and 20th century. What are the existing evils? We can say problems as well in 19th and 20th century. So what are the problems, everyone? What are the problems? We can say we have a numbers of the problems actually. We have a women's problem, women, maybe we have a sati, we have a child marriages, fine, we have a widow remarriages, right, we have a caste system, we have a still social equal status, fine, and we have a caste system, we have a and we have a lack of education, एजुकेशनल लैकनेस लिख रही हूँ यहाँ पे, ठीक है. So we LAC, ठीक है, lackness of education. Fine. So we have a problems. We have a numbers of the problem. We have a sati, child marriages, widow remarriages, caste system, social equal status. We have a numbers of the problems actually. Fine. So what about the last? And the last slide, definitely we are just going to mention about what? We are just mention about the, we said the impact. You have to mention about the impact. You have to mention about the objectives. You have to mention about the aim, that why we are want to reform. Aim is what? Surely we can say why we need the reformation. Why we need the reformation. Need of reformation. Right. And definitely, which is very important to discuss about the factors. Factors, right? And we can say the reasons as well. And the outcome. Fine. Factors, reasons, and the outcomes. And the outcome. Outcome is just we are just going to discuss in the form of a conclusion. Fine. And what we are just going to discuss in the conclusion? In the conclusion, we are just going to discuss about the positive outcome, right? When we learn a lot from the modernization, and what we can write down, that social, what we can write later on, that social and the religious reformations are gradual process. The gradual process. Fine. Reformations are gradual process. And what we can say, and these are somehow creating the platform. Creating the platforms. For whom creating the platforms? For the women, their participation, and where they participated in the national movement, and in the freedom struggle, इसको सही कर लीजिएगा, freedom struggle. Fine. And how they can participate? When they completely contributing themselves, when they're completely aware about what? Equality. And they are aware as well, educated. Fine. So these are the prominent points, everyone, which is completely I sum up in the lecture, which I already mentioning you while writing, that this is your question, this is your introductory part, the points you have to be add there. This is your mid body, the the basic points which is important to mention there. This is your evils and problems, and this is your last, we can say, the conclusion and the impact and the conclusion about the positive outcome, the platform which is created by the social reformations. So we have a numbers of the points. Now this is all about the session, everyone, and I would just like to leave everyone with the same slide that we ended on the conclusion, and we will try to continue the session from tomorrow as well at sharp again 1 p.m. So don't forget to join me. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. I hope this session is completely helpful, where you learned a lot actually. If you have any doubt, any comment, any question, definitely you can ask in the comment box. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone.